Greetings. This is Brother Esquire. Welcome to another episode of All Men Are Not Created Equal. Today we have a very special guest. But before I get started, want to acknowledge and thank God for an opportunity to come to you this afternoon. We have some vital information that we're going to share, and we would not be here if it were not for the Almighty. So got to start the afternoon off with that first. But we're going to discuss the real estate market in the COVID-19 era. As you all know, there's a lot going on. We have a pandemic, a global crisis, and just recently, we've just entered into a national crisis where the quote-unquote leader of the free world is on a sick bed. And now we need to discuss the way forward, especially as it relates to real estate, wealth generation, and our wealth legacy. We have a guest who has been in this particular industry for quite some time. In fact, she has lineage in this industry. And without no further ado, we'd like to bring forth our real estate mogul.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. First, I want to say thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule, because I know you're super busy. I know the different hats that you wear, but today I just want you to wear the hat that says real estate mogul on it, the hat that you've been wearing for quite some time.
Yes.
And on this podcast, before we get started, hit that like button, hit that share button. Also start a watch party on Facebook, because the information we're going to share today will be vital, and I think it will assist you and your family tremendously. So, Ms. Gayle, before we get into the meat of the heart of the discussion, can you just give us a background about who you are, how you entered into this industry, etc.?
Well, Jack, first and foremost, thank you so much for having me on your informative podcast. All men are not created equal, okay? It is an honor and a pleasure to be here. First, let me explain, I'll give you a history, a little quick story before I talk about me. There was a gentleman from Jamaica who was in the army, married to a nurse from Kingston, Jamaica. Over 50 years ago, they moved to New York, Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. They bought one house. With that one house, it led to another and to another. That one house led to a real estate empire with over 1,000 rental units throughout Brooklyn. Those two people were my parents, Leonard and Hazel Gayle. I grew up in a real estate family, knowing the power of real estate, knowing the wealth from real estate, knowing the legacy that real estate could lead to. It is a pleasure and an honor to give my knowledge, my experience to anyone who wants to go into real estate ownership. Ownership is power. Power is freedom. We are given our rights, our freedom rights to have our 40 acres and a mule. We got a mule in the White House. Where's our 40 acres? Now is the time. If you don't have your 40 acres, let me help you get it, because you've got that mule.
Well, we're looking for that 40 acres, because we know from 40 acres, you can grow your own food.
Yes.
You can shelter you and your family. And there's a lot that you can do with that cornerstone of land. And when we talk about land acquisition, we've also seen a global pandemic, and that's called gentrification. Mm-hmm. Whether you're in DC, Detroit, South Central LA, Harlem, Brooklyn, and certain parts of Queens now, we know gentrification is a huge problem. And can you tell us what you've seen over the years of being in this industry?
Sure. So let's talk about the origins of gentrification. and why it's impacting certain neighborhoods. Gentrification started when there was a siege on real estate owners with predatory lending. So at first, these banks were giving out false promises of wealth to certain homeowners who thought that their properties will automatically had a bag or pot of gold in it. When that artificial wealth bust, these investors then came down, knocking on people's doors to take their homes at 50% of the value. You see, we were in Bed-Stuy when it was do or die Bed-Stuy. We were in Crown Heights when you had Crips on one side, Bloods in the other side, and we were trying to unite them. Now that we have Starbucks on one side, Capital One on the other, we are not worthy of our houses. We have to leave. Now that the signs are brown and white, we got to go. I say no. We have to maintain our legacy. We have to maintain our wealth. They are not making more land. They're making more apartments. They're not making more land. If you have land, keep it.
Absolutely. And what are some of the strategies in keeping the land? Of course, being resourced is obvious, but what can you say to that 75-year-old grandma that came from South Carolina or came from Kingston, Jamaica, and found and found a way to get a property in Brownsville or Bed-Stuy or South Jamaica, Queens, and now they're at the point where they're being offered a quote unquote bag of money for their homes, and I know that's happened
Yes.
in Bed-Stuy especially.
Yes, it has. And also, let me just also talk about something recently that's been taking place. Over 9,000 homes have been placed on the New York City tax lien list. So if you are delinquent with your property taxes, if you are delinquent with your water, if you have repairs on your property and you don't have the financial resources to complete the repairs, the city will come in, do the repairs, tack on 3 times the amount, and then convert that into a tax lien. So this tax lien process started with no other than Mayor Rudy Giuliani, when what they were doing was taking the real estate from our street to Wall Street. So there was a transfer of wealth. There was a transfer of ownership. And what's unfortunately happened is that why during the pandemic is the New York City mayor still forcing this property tax lien on hard-working owners, on seniors? We don't even know if these owners are deceased. I know our Attorney General and members like Councilmember Robert Carnegie was trying to delay the tax lien. And I think they still are trying to delay the tax lien sale. So if your property is on the tax lien sale, please call me. My number is below. I try to help people keep their properties. There's so many resources out there through whether it's your local elected official, whether it's organizations like Neighborhood Housing Services, also known as NHS. There's so many resources out there to help homeowners who are struggling with their homes.
Wow. And going back to the tax lien, so you're essentially saying that, well, if a homeowner is behind on their taxes, let's say for the water bill, an investor can come in, yes, purchase that tax lien, and essentially usurp that property from the owner.
Yeah. So let me tell you how it happens. So a tax lien sale happens like this. So let's say a repair that would cost maybe $5,000, and the city comes and does it for $15,000. Then you owe water bills. So of course the interest is compounded daily. What happens now is there's a third-party transfer with the tax liens to an investor, usually all Wall Street investors. They buy in bundles and packages. Now you have an additional lien on your house while you have to pay your mortgage, while you have to pay your current taxes, while you have to pay your current bill. Now you have another burden upon you who you have to enter into agreement to make sure you pay. Now, if you don't pay that tax lien, they could then put a lien on your house and try to force it into foreclosure. So the tax lien becomes another incumbent on your home.
So, and you're saying in New York City, there are over 9,000 outstanding liens?
9,000, and most of those liens are in areas mostly owned by minorities. You have them in Brooklyn. You have them in the Bronx. You have also the Macon Realty. We manage over 3,000 Nehemiah homes. That is in East New York, and it is in Brownsville. These homeowners are all hardworking, whether they're first responders, whether they're members of the union. These are all moderate income home ownership. And of those homes that we manage, there's maybe over 500 or 600 homes that's on that lien list.
And are there any resources for homeowners who find themselves in this particular predicament to get any assistance?
Yes, time is of the essence. Again, our Honorable Attorney General is trying to tell the Mayor of New York City that they have to delay the lien list, especially during this time of pandemic. How do we know that these owners are not deceased? How do we know that they're not facing other financial hardship? So why on God's good earth would the mayor still force homeowners who are mostly minorities to go and put an additional lien during these unforeseen times? Why would they do that? But it's still happening. So what I would encourage is anybody who they know, a family member who's on a tax lien list, call me up, because we want to go to the steps of City Hall and tell Mr. Honorable Mayor, please stop the lien sale. It is unfair practice on minority homeowners.
And you would think a mayor who ran on a tale of two cities that highlighted the fact that there were two New Yorks, one rich and white, one people of color and impoverished, that he would see this as an opportunity to kind of level the playing field. And I think, however, with pushback from various advocacy groups and influential people like yourself, who actually has the ear of many of the elected officials, that we could come to hopefully a resolution that will benefit those who are being hurt by this tax lien.
Yes. It's so. I mean, we know that we have to pay our taxes. We are quite aware of that. But
unless you're paying $750.
Oh, what are you talking about? You talking about the mule?
Unless you are, according to what was mentioned at the debate on Tuesday, unless you are smart, as he said, and have representation to help you navigate through all the available loopholes. You have to pay your taxes.
No, unfortunately, there is no loopholes for us hardworking people. For the average person who pays more than $750 in taxes, or who haven't paid taxes, or who are able to write off their wife Ferragamos and hairstyles, there is no loophole. The only thing there is there's resources. There are people like me. There's people like NHS. There's people like Assemblywoman Latrice Walker. There's people like Councilwoman Alika Samuels, who are there on the forefront in their communities, making sure they are protecting everyone, tenants as well as homeowners, all have to be protected during this pandemic.
And to switch speeds a bit, there are some folks who are not living on the margins during this pandemic. There are some folks who may have some resources tucked away for a rainy day. And then you have other folks who don't only have resources tucked away for a rainy day, but they have resources that they can use to actually take advantage of some of the opportunities during this COVID, where they can become, first-time homeowners, or they can become real estate investors. What advice do you have for one who may want to take a shot at or a chance at the real estate market during this pandemic and it's not national crisis?
Sure. So because of COVID, there was a change in school and business orientation, right? So most people are working from homes. Everything is homebound. I have seen an increased number of renters who want to get their own homes. Then you have other people in a different economic bracket who are now moving out east to the suburbs to get out of the city for safety reasons. But for an average person working who can't afford to move to the suburbs, there has been an increased demand for people trying to buy their own homes. Interest rates are also, thank goodness, at an all-time low right now. So an average 15-year loan, when years ago was 5%, is 2.7%. So my recommendation would be find out to your financial institution, whether it's a credit union, whether it's a conventional bank, whether it's a mortgage broker, see what you are qualified for. Now is the time to buy. Real estate is not going down that much at all. I went to one of my agents went to an open house in Queens, and for one home, there were 25 people trying to buy this home. And mind you, that was only within an hour time frame. When we spoke to the listing agent, they said never before have they seen homes flying off the shelves like it's a fire sale.
Interesting. Even in I guess this pandemic, with the uncertainty being where it is, the demand is still high.
Yes, the one thing that is certain is our home. One thing that is certain is whether we may not have to go to work, but we gotta go home, right? Gotta go home. So the lockdown taught us, if anything, we have to take care of our home. We got to take care of our family. And you don't have that sense of security in a rental apartment. You have too many people next to you, on top of you, underneath you. You want your own home. I mean, it's one of the biggest accomplishments. It is one of the biggest glories to be a homeowner, to turn that key and say, this is mine. I control. You see, ownership is power. Ownership is a sense of relaxation. It's a sense of freedom. So people are realizing, I don't need to be in this apartment anymore. Or instead of paying $3,000 for a 3-bedroom, I could pay $3,400 for a month for a 2-family and get that tax write-off. So home ownership is not only is it most positive thing to do, it's also a lot of resources. Another thing too I want to bring up is organizations like Neighborhood Housing Services. What they are doing is, if you are in a certain economic bracket and want to find a home in certain parts of Queens, Brooklyn, or the Bronx, there's banks like Bank of America and Quantico Bank that is offering assistance with your down payment. They're also offering assistance with your closing costs. So I don't want anybody to think that, buying a home is one of the biggest investments most of us would buy in their lives. I mean, I'm not buying a boat, right? But I buy a home. And a home is more expensive than your car. So don't get intimidated to buy that home. Don't think that it's impossible to come up without down payment. There is a number of resources, whether it's a Fannie Mae, Freddie Mae, whether it's your credit union, who are offering first-time home buyers classes. Maybe that's something one of your unions will want to do, is have a first-time buyer seminar. I'm not putting you on the, I mean, I can help you with that.
Let's make it happen. Anything to empower folks, educate folks, and help them develop a better quality of life. I think we must have, and we must do. Let's talk a little bit about commercial real estate, which is quite different than residential real estate, because I know New York tends to be a tenant-friendly town.
Yes.
And I know, being in the courthouse a couple of times, especially when you have tenants who understand how the system works, and they are actually, I would like to say, landlord-tenant attorneys without the degrees. New York tends to be a very, tenant-friendly town, except when it comes to commercial real estate.
Yes.
Commercial real estate, you miss a month, you're out of there. Basically, with commercial real estate now, with a lot of sales and consumers purchasing, virtually online, big box stores don't seem to be doing that well. What is your take on investing in some sort of commercial property that may have a storefront at the bottom, that kind of thing?
That's a good, so this is a insider note. You always got to look at the trends set by the banks, right? Remember, our financial institutions is where we're getting our loans from. And for me, who own quite a few commercial properties, whether it's a 24-unit building or 2-family with a storefront, banks are reluctant to loan for commercial storefronts now. So, and also, in order to buy commercial property, you need at least 20 to 30% down for your equity, right? As opposed to a residential owner occupier, you need 5 to 10% down, but you need a larger down payment for commercials. I honestly would not recommend new investors to buy commercial storefronts right now because of the impact of COVID. Unless you have a business where you want to occupy it, you want to put your business in there. Maybe you were working in your office and now you don't want to rent in the office building. If you're an attorney or accountant, marketing manager, or whether you have a computer business. And if you say, you know what, instead of renting in an office building, I want to have my own space, then yes, buy that building and utilize that space, for yourself. But for me personally, I'm not buying real estate with commercial storefronts because a lot of stores are closing. If Banana Republics cannot sell any more khakis.
Oh man.
Century 21. Hello.
Yeah, Century 21 in Green Acres Mall is shut down. All of them, right? The one in downtown Manhattan as well. So they're liquidating right now.
Yeah, they filed for bankruptcy. Brooks Brothers, who's wearing the suit besides you?
You're right. There's no reason to go outside. So yeah.
I was in the city the other day. Everybody's in yoga outfits.
Got it.
Yeah, so I wouldn't advise into buying. What I would advise into buying, if you want to be a little bit liquid and you want to do investment, is buy that 4-family house. Because even in our inventory, we have never had such a high turnover rate. Whereas tenants are calling us saying, I lost my job. I'm on furlough. I'm moving back with my family in the Midwest. They're sick. They're not well. So we had a lot of vacancies, but they don't stay vacant because then there's a newer market. So maybe the hospitality industry is not doing well, but the medical field is doing well. So there's a shift in our tenants as relates to their profession. So buying real estate now, like a 5-family, 4-family, or even if you want to do a real estate investment trust with a syndication with some friends, I always advise on that. The only thing I would not advise on right now is buying storefront properties.
Okay. And for many of us, right, this home ownership is a new concept.
Mm-hmm.
For some of us who have grown up in housing developments and have seen maybe 4 or 5 generation of renters.
Mm-hmm.
Great granddaddy was a renter, daddy
Mm-hmm.
was a renter.
I have to. Mm-hmm.
um, and actually getting the information out to a new generation of young people to inform them how important it is to be a homeowner and the benefits of owning a home as opposed to renting.
Yes.
What activities would you recommend in that regard?
So first and foremost, if someone listening is a 4th generation renter in the same apartment, don't brag about it. It's not something you should brag about. Tell me your 4th generation business. Tell me your 4th generation higher education. But being a 4th generation renter is nothing to brag about. I'm sorry. Now, if you are thinking about buying a home, the first thing I would tell you is to check your credit. Your credit is going to dictate your purchasing power. So let's say you get pre-approved right now for, let's say, $800, $500, $400,000. While you are in the process of closing, please do not buy a car. Do not co-sign. Do not do anything to jeopardize your credit.
Good information.
Yes, because the banks run credit hours before the closing. And if they see anything new that's on your credit report, closing is done.
Wow.
So if you are thinking about buying a home, now is the time. You see, my investment is brick and mortar. I can't trust those folks on Wall Street to tell me how much to put in and how much to put out and making decisions on my money on the golf course. Oh, no, 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 no. I control my own equity. I control my own wealth. I control my own stocks in real estate.
So, because the more I look at it, the information you're sharing right now, I believe is information that really should be taught in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th grade.
That's
Not,
right.
You have young adults, especially now, you have 40-year-olds who are living in their parents' basement because they spent their 20s and 30s not understanding the value of home ownership. Have you thought about bringing the passion that you have, the knowledge that you have into the schools, the educational system to start getting young people?
You know what? I never thought about that. And I would be honored to do so because one organization who does a lot of classes on protecting their legacy is Bridge Street. But again, they talk to existing homeowners. And one of the things I teach in Bridge Street is don't wait till you're older. Teach your kids now, right? Let them go with you to your buildings. Let them collect the rents. Let them do entries, QuickBooks, and however you do your income processing. You have to identify now in your family legacy, who is the CFO, who is the CEO, who is the COO, and who is the no. This business. Because we all got one in the family, right?
Of course.
It's cheaper to pay them to stay home.
Correct. You know what? We have a question from one of our viewers on Facebook. My brother Dalil Jabir Muhammad, great friend of mine, great brother of mine. He's the protocol director at Muhammad's Mosque number 7 in New York City in Harlem. He asked the question, why shouldn't we buy storefront properties, especially one with a 2nd floor apartment? I think that's a win-win. Can you address that?
Sure. Example right now. I have a storefront property, just like what he said, which was a win-win. It was a storefront downstairs, and upstairs is a 3-bedroom apartment. However, that storefront business was impacted because they were closed so long. Now that they're open, they're still impacted by it. So I had to reduce their rent and hope that they're not going to shut their doors down. So mixed use property, like a storefront and an apartment on normal times, is a win-win. But just right now, it's such a risky investment. And again, to get that money from the bank, right? If you don't believe me, call up the bank and say, I want to buy a storefront property. They're going to be like, ooh, what kind of business is it? And if you don't know, the banks want to know, how are you getting paid? How are you going to pay your mortgage? How am I getting my money back? So if you don't know how you're going to get your money from that storefront, if so many businesses are closing, then how is the bank going to know? And that's a concern. Again, if you have a business and you want to put that business in there, or if you have a business before you close, let's say you want a grocery store, let's say it's a doctor's office that you know is going to survive during this industry, then yes, buying it is a good thing. If you already have a plan or a tenant before you close.
Got it. And just to underscore what you just said, driving down any major thoroughfare right now, you see gates are shuttered, and now the owner of that property still has to pay that bank note.
Yes, they do. Yes.
And I know we're in a serious time right now when you could go to the hood and you could see that Chinese restaurant that was open for the last 35 years since you were growing up is now closed. I'm like, wow, this is serious.
Yes.
Growing up in the hood, everything else may have shut down, but that Chinese restaurant was, and now it's gone. And that thing survived 20, 30 years in the community. Now, like, there's no one there. We're in serious time.
Think about that. Think about the malls. Lord & Taylor is gone. Banana Republic, Brooks Brothers. So if those big multi-million-dollar operations are shutting down, these smaller businesses, unfortunately, are shutting down as well.
Correct. And we have another question from a friend of mine, my Delta sister right here, Annie Doreska. She says, great information. So what type of properties are a good investment now?
Hi, Annie. Thank you for asking that question. I would say 3-family, 4-family are a good investment. Anytime you buy over a 5-family unit in New York City, then you are now a part of rent stabilization. And now that you're under rent stabilization, 6 or more unit buildings in New York City is considered rent stabilized. That means that your rents are now have to be reported by DHCR, Division of Housing Community Renewal. And you have much more housing regulations when you are running and operating a stabilized unit. So as a first-time investor, I wouldn't recommend buying a stabilized building. I would keep it 5, 4, 3, 2.
Okay. And she had, in addition to her question, she said, what's, I guess, a continuation of a question. What's a good investment if you already own a home? So
buying another 2-family, 3-family, 4-family is a good idea.
Okay. We also have a question, and I hope he's able to come on the show. Our dynamic assemblyman out of Queens, Clyde Bonnell. He said, can we address people having a mindset of ownership? How do we address that? Because I think that's really important. To make the conscious decision that you want to be a homeowner, you actually have to remove the thought of not having been a homeowner. How do we create a mindset to say, you know what? Because in other communities, in fact, you're not considered a mature adult unless you're the lord of some land.
Right.
You're
That's
not,
right. Lord.
you're not a lord unless you have some land, So how do you create that mindset?
Well, how do men create a mindset of going from single to being married? You think about it, you jump the broom, you do it.
You do it. After doing some research.
Just do it. Just do it. Do your research. We all have one of these, a computer. We have resources. Ownership is a mindset. We have to break the systematic change of not wanting to take on more responsibility. We got to break that systematic chain of saying, oh, well, I don't have to deal with, I don't. But guess what then? You don't have to deal with owning your own property. You don't have to deal with gaining power. You don't have to deal with gaining wealth. So if you don't want to gain wealth, if you don't want to build a legacy for your family, if you do not want to have a part of the American dream, then don't buy.
Got it. And what you said is just so important, because I have a friend 5 years ago. He was in a situation where he has great salary, a very secure income stream, but he had to go and rent. So I assisted him with finding a rental apartment, and he paid he's paying about $1,900, $2,000 a month for the rental property. Mm-hmm. And it's 5 years later, and he looked at me and he was like, yo, brother Jacques, mm-hmm. I'm giving this man close to $114,000.
Right, that's right.
He said, and if I get evicted or something happens and I leave today, I'm just leaving with the clothes on my back and the furniture that I purchased. And he has in his bank account $114,000. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And I think that was more compelling to him than anything I could have ever told him. Because when he looked, he realized that as long as you remain a renter, you can't take your rent money that you've given to someone else with you.
You can't.
Whereas if you have property, you can leverage the property. You can even, a rainstorm come, you could borrow off the property. There's a lot you can do when you have the property. So thank you for giving us the ownership.
He wants the link text to him. He said, text me the link. He wants to get on.
Oh, is that right? I had sent it to him prior. Let me see if I could text it to him now.
Another Haitian attorney, Bombay guy.
And actually, Brother Vanell, Assemblyman, is one of those gentlemen that's just bringing a new flavor, a new energy, new thought process to the whole all the legislators in Albany. I'm going to try to get that to you very shortly, brother.
Vanell, what I must say about Assembly Member Vanell, as you said, he knows the value of ownership. He knows the value of, first of all, he was the first one to tell me about Bitcoins and like monopoly money. So,
correct.
And one of the movements that Assembly Member Vanell has been doing throughout Queens, how often do you see on the polls those little plastic signs that says house for cash, right? We want to we'll buy your home for cash. It's amazing how they're only in certain neighborhoods. So in certain neighborhoods, they think we're vulnerable. In certain neighborhoods, they think they could come in and penetrate our seniors and flip the whole fabrication, the soul of our neighborhoods. They cannot do that in Howard Beach. They cannot do that in Borough Park. So certain neighborhoods, they think that we are vulnerable. They think that we could just come in and take our homes away. Please, if anybody is in foreclosure, if they know anybody who's in foreclosure, anybody who is facing difficulties with keeping their home, please call me. I'll be more than happy to guide them to the right resources, how to preserve your legacy.
And as far as working with elected officials and pushing legislation for home ownership for our community. Can you talk a little bit about the work that you do, and especially?
Yes, my elected officials know. So I know one of the big campaigns they have right now is, freeze rent. Don't pay your rent, moratorium on rent. Now, I understand that renters, no, not just renters, homeowners, everyone is going through hardship. But when you do that, don't pay rent, stop for paying your rent, some of those homeowners are labor. They work in labor. Some of those homeowners are emergency responders. Some of those homeowners look like me and you. We're not big landlord. Well, I'm a big landlord. Some of them.
You know what? Can I hold you right there, Charlene, for 1 second? Because we do have our assemblyman with us, and I'm going to bring him on.
Please do.
Assemblyman Bonnell.
Wow.
How are you, sir?
First of all, Counselor, Jacques Leandra, I am so proud of you and all that you do. And on this show, when you started this program, it came out so professional, so well. And then all the different topics that you had every week, and then your guests, and then this week with the Honorable Charlene Gayle, who's dropping jewels. What a blessing! What a blessing! Thank you for all that you guys are doing. You guys are, just so much props to you guys. And Charlene is a force of nature, and it's a blessing to know her and to see someone who commands so much respect, who's about wealth and generational wealth. She represents the generations of wealth and building and growing of what she had. We've heard of the Trump family and how Trump messed up what his daddy had, but you don't know what Charlene has been doing with her family's wealth, right? We have that in Black, and in our Black society, and that's a beautiful thing.
I'm a Black Trump now.
But and Clyde, I'm glad you brought that up. Matter of fact, Assemblyman Bonnell. I got to be formal here. We're on the podcast. It's not Clyde, but Assemblyman Bonnell. We want to thank you for the work that you've done, and also for bringing the ingenuity to that state floor in Albany. And I know when it comes to real estate, before you were even an elected official, you had real estate investments and had just an entrepreneur. Can you talk to us a bit about how that related to your real estate and your entrepreneurialism and how that all tied in?
So one thing is that we say this, but we have to recognize this, is that we as a people are diverse. We as a people have many interests. We as a people are not only renters, we are owners. We as a people are not only tenants, we are landlords. We as a people are not only consumers, we are producers. We as a people are not only afraid of LLCs and corporations, we're owners of LLCs and corporations. We as a people should think about, and we should be pushing, in my position, I should be pushing to get us to become more of ownership, to take advantage of the rules of the game. And there are rules of the game. And I believe that we can get there. And I believe that we are smart enough to overcome. I believe we're smart enough to own. I believe that we are good enough to do these things. But that's why it's great when Charlene is here talking about, she's not just talking about theory. Yeah, she went to college. Yeah, she's smart. Yeah, she got all these degrees, and she's talking about University of Maryland, all this crap, But when people were asking her questions on what to invest in and not to invest, she's not talking about what she read in the Wall Street Journal. She's living this every day. These buildings, right? She's the people write checks to her, right? Have to pay her rent every month. She's the landlord. So
correct.
So we can be that also. We can be that also.
Thanks. And I just want to shout out a couple of my labor family. We have Earl Phillips, of course, and then I see we have the big prez from DC 37 Local 372, Sean Francois, who's just joined us, and the work that he's doing is tremendous. And in fact, he has an election coming up. So anyone who works in a school system that's non-pedagogical, meaning our school crossing guards, our lunchroom workers, our SAPIS workers, our paraprofessionals, vote for your president, Sean D. Francois. He's doing a tremendous job on your behalf. Ann has another question, which is a great one. Are there any investment opportunities that we should be aware of? Great question.
Yes.
And go ahead, Charlene. Then we'll ask our assemblyman to chime in. Go ahead.
Member, you want to take that, assembly member?
You can take it first.
Okay. So I would look at up and coming areas. I would also check where, see, the big thing as it relates to real estate is not only zoned in, but the land use, the land use committee. Land use under the mayor pretty much dictates where is the next investment impact. So right now in Brooklyn, the big investment impact is in East New York and in Brownsville. So investors, they watch all of this. So I would say look at areas like that. Also too, we don't do a lot of personal contact or just communication with each other. Instead of just talk about it through your neighbors, talk about it through people in the store. Hey, I'm looking to buy. You never know who right next door to you want to buy and want to sell to people who looks like you. These investors are knocking on people's doors, even during COVID. They're knocking on doors, but we're so prideful and proudful. We're going to pick up the computer and look. No. Look at the neighbor next to you, to the right of you, to the left of you, around the block. Shout it out loud. Like women, they so quick to say, I want a man. I want a house.
Thank you. And Assemblyman, before you answer that question, I want to also recognize one of our women leaders in labor, Michelle Achapong, who is Local 371's political director. Michelle, thank you for joining the show. And she said, great job, Charlene. She didn't know you were doing all this. She said she got to talk to you.
This is my other hat. This is my other hat.
The other hat. And Brother Bunnell, Brother Assemblyman Bunnell.
So Brother Job. So first of all, you are a very dangerous person, Ja, by even having this show and approaching these conversations. So, these are very important questions for us to ask ourselves. And, what should you invest? The first thing is just having a conversation of we as a people need to invest, period. We should have the mindset of invest. I think that this period of time of coronavirus where the world stopped, where businesses stopped, where many people's jobs, and it affected everyone. I think this has the opportunity for us and our people to readjust and reimagine where we're going and how we're going. If you got your stimulus check, I found that, this summer, and I got to keep it real, I don't want to be honest. Do you want me to be honest or you want
No, be honest, because I'm about to be honest as well. You just mentioned something that just triggered something. Go ahead.
Listening.
Okay, if you want me to be honest, I can be honest. If I don't want to be honest, sometimes I get in trouble not trouble, because even though I'm a politician, I try to tell the truth. I found it a shame this summer when people were receiving $1,200 checks, spending it on fireworks. I don't see how you can take a $1,200 check and blow it up.
And burn it.
And burn it. Right? When we talk about investing, and yes, Charlene, you're talking about investing in real estate or what have you, but the first step to me is to have the mindset of investing. Invest in yourself. Invest in reading the books that you need to read to be able to figure things out. Invest your time with people like Charlene, with people like Jacques, with people and with conversations like these. Get to the people that are doing things that you need to be doing things with. How to invest. flip stuff. Very easy to get something, sell the stuff that you have in your house. Go to your closet. So I went through my suits and I saw a bunch of suits that I did not wear anymore. And this over during coronavirus. And I dry cleaned them, put them on eBay, sold suits and shoes, and made, I don't want to say how much I made money selling the stuff that I don't want anymore. Right? You can go on, you could do that on Craigslist. But there's so many ways that you can make money. Buy an old car, flip cars. That's something I used to do. Flip car. Before we even get to how do you take $100 and make that $200? How do you take that 200 and make it 500? And respect the seeds that you grow. Respect that. Have that kind of mindset. That's number one. That's very important. Two, as Charlene said before, very important. You know, I think I want to do something where I have parties where you can come in, where you get inside, whether it's virtual or real, and the entrance is you got to have a 700 or better. That's credit score. 700 credit score or better to get in.
Wow.
We have to value good credit. When I see a child or young people that have bad library card situation where they don't return their library cards, they're setting themselves up for bad credit.
Correct.
We gotta have, so having good credit should be normal for us, right? So we can leverage that. But you know, mindset of investment, we must invest, and we can. We are people that can.
And Brother Assemblyman, you just mentioned something, and I want to give my son a shout out, Jacques III, because during this COVID, he became a sneaker reseller.
You're lying. You're lying.
I promise you, he's become a sneaker reseller, and the way I watch him manage his funds is incredible. I mean, he's frugal. He is frugal. He saw Modell's going out of business. He had me to start him off with like three beans. I gave him 3 beans, and then he flipped that 3 beans. I can't tell you what he got now because his friends may come after him, right? But he was like, your dad, take me to Modell's. Modell's is going out of business. Modell's had a fire sale with Tim's and some other sneakers. He took it. He looked on the websites that he deals with and saw the resale value for them. He invested that money, and every other day he's shipping sneakers all over the country and reinvesting his money. And that was just understanding the concept of investment, as you just mentioned. And what's even crazier, you know, when we go out to eat, I'm like, yo, you got your own money now. He's like, nah, Dad. You got to treat me the same way you treated me before you saw me flipping these sneakers, you know? and so he's making sure he's not spending any of his money and reinvesting his money. And that was just from that mindset you was just talking about, that whole reinvestment piece. And as young people, you know, we have to invest in our young people and make sure they create that mindset. And I'm glad you brought up that point.
Charlie, listen to that example. Listen to the muscles that he built. So Junior got, number one, he was watching the market, right? He had to understand the market and watch the market. 2, he had to seize the opportunity to do that. 3, he had to set something up so that he could take advantage of it. And then he reinvested in it. That's what sophisticated folks in the markets do. And that's what he's already doing. It's amazing. It's amazing.
It's amazing. And you know what? Michelle, I could find from Local 371 said her son did the same thing. So we have a cadre of young people now that's looking at this stuff, and they're saying, you know what? We don't have to be consumers. And he's not even worried about, you know, necessarily the kicks that he has on his feet. He's worried about every time he looks at his iPhone, the dollar hits his account. And I said, man, you know, my wife and I, we're super proud that he's taking this very seriously. And he's like, Dad, this is how much it's going to cost at Staples for me to get my packaging boxes, my foam, my XYZ. And so, you know, when you see a young person going hard like that, you have to chip in. So, you know, he's like, Dad, take me to the post office. I have no problem, man. I could be dead tired. I'm jumping out of bed, whatever it is. taking him to the post office because I see, that he has that initiative. So Earl Phillips from TWU said credit and budgeting need to be discussed. Good conversation. And we also have Michelle that says, yes, tell the truth. Be real, assembly member. I wasn't taught to invest in myself. I figured out and taught my daughter, who purchased her first home at 26.
Wow.
We have to become homeowners and leave something for our children. Others do it. And that ties into exactly what we've been discussing. Charlene, you talked about home ownership. You talked about investment. And our assemblyman, I'm so glad you were able to join us. You talked about it. You talk about it as well. But you've been talking about this for quite some time. And I remember when you first got in assembly, I won't say which of your colleagues looked at you funny, but some of your colleagues were looking at you like, why is this guy always talking about business and he's always talking about investment? And wait, why isn't he talking about what we could hand out? Because your approach was a little different than the traditional approach. And what have kept you steadfast in that approach to say, no, I got to move forward in this direction?
Well, a couple of things. One thing is that so I'm very careful. Again, this period of coronavirus is something that can be used to really. We could either at the end of this and after this be 20 steps behind, or we can skip the line and get ahead, and we can cut certain steps. So, and I believe that, again, our mindset is very important. We come from a people, whether we were immigrated from here recently, right? Or, 1 or 2 generations ago from the Caribbean or Africa or whatever, or whether we were brought here, from back in the day to slavery, whatever it is, we weren't able to own. Whether you became a sharecropper or what have you, you weren't able to own. So you were here some of us have been here for generations. And if we still don't own, we have to change that. Mm-hmm. So it's important for us to break that. We have to break that cycle. We have, and we have to do it with intention. And I can't hide it. I can't say, but I have to do it with intention, and it's going to hurt. It's going to blah, 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 blah. So it's difficult, but we have to do that. But I have a question for Charlene, though. One short question for Charlene. People have been asking me about this. With real estate, New York is very expensive. New York City is very expensive. And people are trying to buy. They see that they could buy a house in wherever for $5,000, a house for somewhere, blah, 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 for $20,000. Is it worth going to places far and away if the prices are low?
That's a good question. So the prices are low, but what is your income? What are the rents? What are your overhead? What are your expenses? See, all these factors have to be considered. Also, you have to now hire a management company, right, to look over your investments. And if you only own one house in, let's say, Kentucky, the cost of property management. A next place that I'm personally looking at and have purchased is New Jersey. So if you want to go outside of New York, go something in a close proximity like New Jersey. There's a lot of good investment opportunities in New Jersey, in Philly. But one thing you have to look out to is the housing laws, the regulations that controls your investment, and also just the overall cost. So to look into investments outside of New York is definitely a thing that can be done. Okay,
so you're saying research must be performed ahead of time.
That's right. You have, it's in anything. You have to know, you have to do your R&D, your research and development, before you acquire anything. Don't you do your research on somebody before you put a ring on it?
Absolutely. So this investment thing is a relationship concept.
It is. Married to the property, huh? I'm in love with my properties. I get offended when somebody say you want to sell. I say, you see a sign? It's like somebody saying you don't want your man. Yeah, I want my man.
Gotcha. And Charlotte, getting back, because New York is like super duper expensive. In the last 3 months, I've had about 4 or 5 friends and their families move to like the Poconos, to New Jersey. They just got out of New York, and it made sense. They were paying $2,500 for a 1-bedroom, and it was a matchbox. What have you seen as far as, and this is to add on to Assemblyman's question, what have you seen as far as the departure from New York and going to other markets, like forget about investment, but residential properties just to live?
I've seen a lot of my first-time home buyers looking in more and more New Jersey. They were looking into Poconos, but again, you also have to, when you're looking into a home to investment or to live in, you also have to check the demographics, the school system, the transportation, also what is the social life over there, right? So certain people felt that going to the Poconos wasn't the best thing for them because they didn't have that sense of city life. So you also have to look and explore all those characteristics of a new neighborhood. So that's why a lot of my clients, they were buying Queens. Now they can't afford Queens. They can't even afford the Bronx these days, right? So now they're looking at New Jersey. I think price value in New Jersey, you're getting a good bang for your dollar.
Okay. And I got to tell you ahead of time, you're going to get some of your folks from the Boogie Down Bronx calling in later on. What did she say about the Bronx? They can't even.
It's expensive. That's what I
said. But you're absolutely correct. When you look at some of the areas in the Bronx, about 15 years ago, I did a college readiness program in the Bronx in the housing developments of Millbrook, Patterson, houses, Mitchell houses, and Highbridge, and just the raw stock of the housing is beautiful. You overlooking bridges, you overlooking bodies of water. And I was talking to the TA presidents, and they invited me into their home, and they said, standing right here, look out this window. And I'm like, man, this is like being on the Upper West Side. And now, 15 years later, like you said, you can't even afford some of the properties in the BX. And this was a place that was quote unquote downtrodden, etc. So we have to make where we live a decent and beautiful place where we are, and we can raise the values of our home. Charlene, Assemblyman, it's at the 5 o'clock mark. I would like to allow you a chance to give us some closing remarks. And I see we have in our chat that there must be a part 2. So at some point in the future, I'm going to ask you ahead of time if you could bless us with your presence for part 2.
Yeah, ready. Fired up. Ready to
vote. Good.
Anytime.
Thank you, Assemblyman. Well, ladies first, because we do believe that our sisters are number one, and they have to be loved, protected, and respected. So we're going to ask you to go first, Charlene, with any closing remarks.
Sure. I think I'm crying right now, but okay, thank you. So as I said, Jacques, ownership kickstarts your legacy in real estate wealth. Wealth is numbers. Worth is a mindset. Increase your real estate network now. We are entitled to our 40 acres and a mule. We already got that mule in the White House. Now it's the time to start buying and building your legacy, building your wealth. Take your God-given right. They are not making any more land. They can make as many more apartments as they can. If you have land now, hold on to it, protect it. Know your wealth in real estate.
Thank you so much again, Charlene. I can't thank you enough for joining us in the All Men Are Not Created Equal podcast. And now I'm going to ask our Assemblyman for some closing remarks.
First of all, Jacques, thank you for having me, and thank you for bringing these great programs to the community, and thank you for letting me share just a few minutes with Charlene, who I learn from all the time, and I really appreciate her. As a matter of fact, Jacques, you don't know this, I went to Haiti with Charlene last year, 2 years ago,
wow.
something like that. And Charlene is more Haitian than we are, Jacques. Okay.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Stop saying that,
But very important for us to be a people with a mindset of investing. Very important for us to continuously do that, to get better, to talk about that. Very important for us to spend. Look, during this coronavirus time, when you're at home, if you have time to watch series of Netflix, you have time to feed your mind on what's going on with investing, to learn about different stuff, to learn about investing in real estate, learning about investing in the market, learning about investing in yourself. I mean, it's a very powerful thing to hear about your son, who is a teenager, who is using market principles to be able to build income and wealth. That's a very powerful thing. So if that teenager can do that, so can you. And that is a very important, powerful thing for us to do. We are owners. We are owners. We are landlords. We are creators. We are producers. And I want us to know that and understand that. But you got to understand too, it ain't easy. It's hard, right? Investing is difficult. You may lose. You may take you may it's a risk, but you must do that for yourself and for your future generations. And if I can help with this conversation, I will. And I'm also learning at the same time. Thank you, Jacques.
Well, thank you so much. Again, can't thank you all enough. And just from the feedback we're getting online, they said another brother, Dalil Jabir Muhammad, said, I look forward to part 2. Thank you all. So we're gonna need part 2. We're gonna have to have part 2. And I was hoping that by February we would be in Albany at the Black and Latino focus.
Yeah.
Since we can't be there, we're gonna have to bring it here virtually somewhere and make it happen where we can have this kind of discourse, because it's desperately needed in our community. And to my listening audience and to my viewing audience of All Men Are Not Created Equal podcast, thank you so much for joining us. And until next time, we see you again. Peace.